problem and the bigger issue is that because it's going to get highlighted over and over and over and over and over again in the biggest moment, this is something that the league is going to have to say something about.
Well, again, all year it was over-officiated. I think the league clearly had a conversation with both crews and said, let them play. I thought there were... I noticed it very early in the Rams-Saints game. I'm like, oh, my God, they're not calling PI on anything.
Yeah, no, I agree with let them play.
Both teams, they just let them play all day.
That's fine. I don't like things coming down to a penalty, but this was so agreed. If it's back and forth and there's hands, and that's different. Like, he tackled him, and so they're going to have to do something about it. Finally, Drew Brees will have a bitter taste in his mouth about yesterday for a very long time, I'm sure. Tough 26-23 overtime loss, but Brady says that he plans to return next year.
This is all still pretty fresh, but just going to, take a few days to kind of let it all settle in and talk with my teammates and my coaches. I plan on being here next year and making another run at it.
By the way, last year the Saints lost. This year the Saints lost.
How about that? Back-to-back.
Like heart-breaking
the
losses.
worst possible way you can lose back-to-back years.
Yeah. I mean, they've just gotten a series. Listen, man, it's funny because New England tends to win those close ones. The Saints tend to lose them. But I will say this, of the four teams that were left, yards per play, the Saints were last going into the weekend, and the Saints were last after the weekend. This offense for the Saints peaked.
It was not the same as it was early in the regular season.
The Cowboy game changed everything. It gave everybody a blueprint. The Saints offense was never the same after that Cowboys game.
Well, that's why I picked the Rams this weekend, because I did not like what I was seeing from them towards the end of the season, and especially the week before. But this still is a rough way to lose.
It is. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
He was a 4-time Pro Bowler in 13 NFL seasons. A wild weekend. He's been in this situation before. Michael Vick. Let's bring him on, Mike. Number 1 overall pick, NFL Comeback Player of the Year, most rushing yards ever by a quarterback. So let's start with Brady, and let's start with Patrick Mahomes. I said football is kind of complicated when you look at the playbook.
Yeah.
But basically, football, Michael's pretty simple. You plan for a week to do several things and impose your will.
Right.
They plan to do several things against you. New England pretty much did everything they wanted to. Sony Michel ran. Edelman was great. Brady never got touched. They kept the ball away from Mahomes. They ran the football. Kansas City, meanwhile, couldn't do anything they prepared for. Travis Kelce, no pressure on Brady. Couldn't run the football.
None.
I felt like I was shocked it went to overtime. New England all week prepared to do 5 things. They did all of them.
They did everything. In the beginning, it looked like it was going to be a blowout.
Yes.
I mean, the way they came out, they didn't do anything that was outside of the norm. They lined up in 2 receivers, 2 backs, a fullback, tight end, and they just pounded the ball, zoners, gap schemes, did everything that they wanted to do, controlled the clock, kept Patrick Mahomes off the field, and I can tell that was the goal coming in, and they did it well, and they did it to perfection.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Brady's red zone pick, and everybody makes mistakes, and Tom, by the way, has had a lot of big picks and a lot of big games against Atlanta, the pick 6.
Yeah.
Tom's never perfect in these games and often makes a big mistake early in big games against Seattle, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Kansas City. What Tom does is late, he wears a defense out. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
I mean, it's the way that he orchestrates the offense. So, the run game was a big part of the game plan yesterday, and you can tell it was all about controlling the time of possession and letting guys make plays when they lined up in 4 wides, quick outs, quick slants, get Gronk involved. It was a game plan that was prototypical for their style of offense, and it don't require for them to have dynamic players on the field. These guys are guys who
they catch the ball,
probably average in anybody else's offense, and Tom Brady just make them look like they're Pro Bowlers.
Andy Reid, you know him well. Was there anything about the game plan for Kansas City you didn't love?
I thought they had a great game plan. I thought they started slow, and that was due to the fact that it was cold and they wasn't on the field.
Right.
Trying getting into a rhythm. But at the end of the day, I just felt the defense, didn't play up to par, we talked about all year. And I don't know what this means for Coach Sutton. I know him personally, but this is the second year in a row that You know,
they could not
underachieve.
Second year in a row that the Chiefs, by the way, the Chiefs have big name players.
Yeah.
D Ford's going to get franchised. Justin Houston, Chris Jones, Eric Berry.
Kendall Fuller.
Second year in a row, couldn't get people off the field in the second half.
Right, and you can't win football games that way, especially in the championship games when it counts the most. That's when you got to be at your best. So, yes, there were calls that should have been made. There were stops that should have happened on third down. It just didn't happen, and the better team made the better plays, you know, at the right times during the game.
Let me talk about the Saints and Rams. Okay, everybody is glomming onto the bad call, and it was missed.
Yeah.
As a former player, how do you look at bad calls?
I look at it like this. As long as I played, if I would have had a couple calls that wasn't made or was made, I may have one ring. And those are things that you can't pout about, you can't be upset about, because the refs aren't perfect. You can't go into a game expecting to get calls. You got to play to win. And when it happened, I said, look, that should have been a pass interference. Call, no call, it didn't happen. It should have never gotten to that point. I feel like the Saints should have ran the clock out. You know, once they got in field goal range.
They didn't.
They didn't play the clock. They didn't play the clock correctly.
You know what they did? They were. When you get late in the games, Michael, you're not playing an opponent. You're playing the clock.
Right, you're playing the clock.
They played the Rams, not the clock.
Right. They could have given the ball back, kicked the field goal, given the ball back to the Rams with about 50, 55 seconds left.
Game over.
And your percentages go up as far as winning. That's your Super Bowl right there. So that call, to me, should have been made. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's irrelevant to the game and everything that transpired. They were up early. The Rams wasn't, you know, the Rams in the beginning, in the first half, and they found a way to win. So, you know, my hat goes off to them as far as, you know, what they had to accomplish and the adversity that they had to face and overcome throughout that game.
Yeah, we just showed on FS1. I thought, you know, sometimes coaches get aggressive, and most fans like aggressive coaches. I thought Sean Payton got too aggressive, and I'll say it again, when you get late in games, the great coaches realize you're no longer playing an opponent. The opponent is the clock.
Right.
And New Orleans should have just bled the clock, kick a field goal, but an incomplete pass. By the way, even Troy Aikman and Joe Buck were baffled by it.
Troy, I mean, both of those guys were like in disbelief. I was too, because I thought I knew what the scenario was about to be.
Well, it was kind of a simple scenario.
Yeah, it was simple. I mean, it sort of reminded me of what the Seattle Seahawks did in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and what Atlanta.
They overthought it.
Yeah, they overthought it. You know, and I understand the aggression. You know, that's all good in football, but it's a time to be aggressive and it's a time to be passive.
Let's talk quarterbacks. Tom Brady. If Tom Brady, and they're slight favorites over the Rams, wins the Super Bowl, what do you think transpires?
I think Tom retires. After watching his post-game interview, and this is not, you know, this is just my observation. I just thought he was so elated. He was so excited. You know, he shouted out his wife, his family. I could just tell it was a big relief. And if he goes in and wins another Super Bowl, that's 6.
Now, that would be 6 wins in 9 Super Bowls.
Yeah, I mean, what else is it to offer? I mean, you know, Patrick Mahomes, I feel like, is a guy that's going to win one. Jared Goff is definitely going to win one, you know, in his tenure, you know, with the Rams. If he stays with Sean McVay, you know, I think Brady steps aside and give these other guys an opportunity to win some. Because if not, he'll be 45 still playing in this game.
By the way, Patriots have 12 draft picks, Gronk, and I don't have inside information, but I have talked to people who believe Gronk will retire, go into wrestling acting. So the team will lose a big contract. They'll have 12 draft picks. By the way, 2 from last year had great camps, became starters, and got hurt. So it's like 14 new draft picks.
Yeah.
Their best players outside of Gronk are mostly, and Devin McCourty, in their mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
So if Brady decides not to retire, they're going to be incredibly young and formidable going forward. Now let's go to Jared Goff. Overwhelmed early. What was your takeaway on him late?
I thought Jared Goff won the game. I mean, I take no credit away from the other guys. I think Dominic Sue was worth every penny, even though he showed up late in the season. I think paying Aaron Donald paid dividends. Getting to lead back was a great asset. Marcus Peters came and played his game. Dante Fowler was a big part of, you know, the success.
Look at
yesterday.
that throw.
but Jared Goff won this game. The play that he made on the naked to the right at the end of the game with pressure in his face.
And he was able to escape it.
He was able to escape it. He showed a ton of guts. He showed heart, ability to stay focused in a hostile environment, and that's what you want out of your franchise quarterback. It was beautiful to watch, and they deserve everything that they have coming right now.
That to me was the play of the game.
That was the play of the game.
We think that Goff is a pocket passer, and he overwhelmingly is.
Yeah.
But both those plays, including this one, the sidearm, by the way, very Mahomes-like,
right?
And then the other one, those are that's off script stuff.
Yeah.
And those were great. And I'll say this: as great as Drew Brees is, in overtime and late fourth, Goff outplayed him.
He outplayed him, and it wasn't to anyone's surprise. I don't think
he's a number one pick.
He's the number one pick. He's tough. He has the stature. He's strong, and he has a coach that believes in him. And he just did everything right. It wasn't perfect in the first half, and games are going to be that way as a quarterback. You find out a lot about yourself at the quarterback position, and this is only going to make him a better player moving forward.
Yeah, Brady did not play great early. Remember the pick six? Goff struggled early, but both road winning quarterbacks went in at half, made adjustments, and didn't let bad moments overwhelm them.